Thank you for being here, right in this moment. Before you scroll away, give me just a few seconds. Because today is not an ordinary day for Pisces. Something very subtle is shifting, quietly, without announcement, yet strong enough to reach deep inside you. Sometimes life doesn't change through dramatic events, but through a vague feeling, one that slows your heartbeat, just enough for you to notice. And if you're hearing these words, it may be because your home, the most familiar space in your life, is about to tell you something important. Stay with me. Breathe a little slower. Because this story begins on a morning that seems completely ordinary. There are mornings when the air inside your home feels different. Not louder, not brighter, nothing visibly changed. The walls are the same. The corners you've walked past hundreds of times are still there. But the feeling is not. It's so light that if you rush, you'll miss it. So subtle that only those who listen with their heart will notice. For Pisces, moments like this arrive quietly, like a soft reminder that today is not just another day. You might be standing in the kitchen or sitting by the window and suddenly feel your chest soften, not from sadness, but from something deeper. It feels like remembering an old dream. No clear images, only the aftertaste. The house seems to breathe with you, slower, deeper, as if inviting you to pause before jumping back into the familiar rhythm of life. Pisces is sensitive to changes others don't notice. You feel the energy of a space, the memories lingering in quiet corners. And this morning, that very space is speaking to you in its own language. Not through words, but through a sense of safety, through a mind that softens, through a rare moment of stillness in days filled with too many thoughts. You may have come through a long season of holding yourself together, holding on to stay okay, holding on so you don't disappoint anyone, holding on to the belief that everything will work out. Your home has seen it all, the restless nights, the quiet sighs, the moments you wondered why you were so tired, and today it feels as if it wants to hold you. No questions, no judgment, just giving you permission to be still. The moment you notice this, even for a few seconds, something gently awakens inside you. Not to force change, but to remind you that you can still feel, that your heart has not hardened, that you are still capable of hearing life's quiet whispers, the ones we miss when we stop listening. This moment carries a message for Pisces. Peace doesn't always arrive after everything is resolved. Sometimes it arrives first, like a quiet gift, letting you know you're being guided, that something is shifting, slowly, steadily, right inside the place you know best. Allow yourself to stay with this feeling just a little longer. No analysis, no need to understand it yet. Take a deep breath. Notice the light in the room, the small sounds of life around you. Because in these ordinary moments, an unseen door is beginning to open. And as you move through the rest of today, carrying the softness that just touched your heart, you'll start to realize it's not only the air in your home that has changed. The way you see everything is changing too, as if life itself is quietly rearranging its flow, preparing you to receive new signals, small signs filled with meaning, appearing gently all around you. And in that moment, you begin to realize that these signals are never loud. They don't interrupt. They don't demand attention. They simply exist, like morning light slipping through the curtains, just enough to be seen if you allow yourself to slow down one more breath. This change does not come from the outside. It isn't forced by circumstances or caused by someone else. It begins right inside the most familiar space, the place where you've lived with so many memories, joy, sadness, and things that were never spoken out loud. A corner of your home suddenly feels different, not because it looks different, but because the emotion you placed there has changed. An old object, quiet for so long, now holds your gaze a little longer, as if it's reminding you of a version of yourself that was once deeply sincere, deeply fragile, and quietly strong. Sometimes it's only a passing sentence, echoing in your mind like a distant voice, a sentence that once hurt you, or one that once gave you so much hope. Before, every time you touched that memory, your heart would tighten. But today, it's different. The memory is still there, but it's no longer sharp. You look at it the way you look at a healed scar. You remember, but it no longer hurts. The moment arrives softly, yet deeply enough for you to understand that you are changing. Not by erasing the past, but by looking back at it with a gentleness you never allowed yourself before. You begin to see how hard you have been on yourself, how much you demanded that everything be overcome quickly, cleanly, as if emotions were something to be hidden away. The house, in its quiet stillness, becomes a mirror, not reflecting your image, but reflecting your inner state. And in that mirror, you see the parts of yourself that were once left behind. Not to blame them, but to hold them, like touching an old memory, not to cry, but to finally breathe out in relief. You may feel a warmth spreading slowly in your chest, not a burst of happiness, but a real sense of peace. The peace that comes from accepting that you've already walked a long road, that you've endured enough, and that you no longer need to be so harsh with yourself. The things that once kept you restless begin to step back, making room for something softer, more compassionate. And within that softness, something important is happening. You are creating space for something new to enter. Space in your heart, space in your thoughts, space in the way you look at life. When you stop forcing yourself to be strong, you begin to feel strong in a different way, quieter, but more lasting. The memories you just touched are no longer burdens. They become pieces that help you understand why you are who you are today. And from that understanding, a very gentle trust begins to form. That some changes don't need noise to transform an entire journey. That even within the most familiar things, life is quietly rearranging itself, so you can move forward with a lighter heart and a kinder gaze toward yourself. And as that heavy layer begins to dissolve, you finally realize how long you've been carrying it. Thoughts stacked day after day, worries repeating themselves in silence, very real hopes that were never given a name. All of it has been there for far too long, like an invisible bag you've grown used to carrying on your shoulders, to the point where you no longer remember what lightness feels like. For many days, you kept living. You played your role. You smiled when it was expected. But deep inside, there were questions without answers, hopes placed on hold, and a kind of exhaustion you never allowed yourself to admit. Pisces often lives this way, choosing to endure quietly, afraid of being a burden, afraid of weighing on others. And slowly, you became the last person who truly listened to you. Today is different. The house seems to notice it before you do. It doesn't ask you to be stronger. It doesn't push you to understand anything. It simply opens a pause, just wide enough for you to rest inside yourself. Not to escape life, but to slow down for a moment, like stopping midway through a long journey to take a deep, steady breath. In that pause, you can sit without needing to decide what comes next. You can let thoughts pass through without holding on to them. And for the first time in days, your breathing becomes slower, deeper. Each breath gently loosens a layer of tension you've grown used to carrying. You begin to see that you don't have to fix everything right now. You don't need answers to every question. Some things only need to be acknowledged to begin healing. And in that acknowledgement, a real sense of relief spreads through you, quiet, but strong enough to remind you that you are still living deeply. The house becomes a place that holds the words you never said. Worries are set down, even if only for a moment. Hopes are allowed to exist without being judged as unrealistic or too fragile. You allow yourself to be soft, not as a failure, but as a right to rest after a long road. And in that exact moment, when you stop trying to control your emotions, something very subtle happens. You begin to feel safe with your own thoughts. They are no longer as frightening as before. They are simply signs that you cared, that you hoped, that you lived with your whole heart. This sense of safety doesn't come because everything is suddenly okay. It comes from allowing yourself to breathe, even when things are not okay. And as you breathe this way, slowly, deeply, the last of the heaviness begins to fade. It makes room for a different feeling. The feeling that maybe, if you become just a little lighter, life will meet you with the same gentleness. And from that lightness, the things that once felt far away begin to find their way closer, quietly, naturally, exactly when they are meant to. And when you allow yourself to slow down like this, not because you're giving up, But because you trust enough to loosen your grip, you begin to realize something important. Life doesn't need to be pushed in order to open its heart. Some blessings can only find their way to you when you stop rushing, when you stop holding everything so tightly, as if letting go for even a moment would mean losing it all. Pisces, the moment you soften toward yourself is the same moment the world around you begins to soften too. That blessing doesn't arrive with a racing heartbeat or wide eyes of surprise. It arrives in a way that feels very much like you, gentle, subtle, almost easy to miss. It might be a piece of news that sounds ordinary at first, yet somehow leaves your heart more at ease. It might be an unexpected message, one that doesn't fix everything, but reminds you that you're not alone. Or it may simply be a moment when you look at an old problem differently, without blame, without asking why you had to endure so much, but quietly realizing how far you've already come. You begin to see that life has never turned its back on you. It has only been waiting for you to slow down enough to notice the quiet arrangements unfolding all along. The things that once felt like dead ends start to reveal another path. Not because circumstances changed dramatically, but because you changed how you stand within them. When you stop viewing everything through fear, you begin to see through trust. And that is when doors that once seemed invisible slowly begin to open. A very real warmth moves through you. Not a burst of excitement, but the feeling of being supported. You understand now that you don't have to strain to deserve good things. You only need to be present, honest with your emotions, patient with your own journey. Blessings don't arrive to reward suffering. They arrive to remind you that you are ready to receive. Pisces has a wide, open heart, and because of that, you've often carried more worry than you ever needed to. Today, as you allow yourself to slow down, you're also learning how to set down the burdens that were never yours to carry. And in the space that opens up, a new current of life begins to flow in. Very gently, very steadily. Like cool water, soothing dry ground that has waited a long time. You may not be able to name this blessing yet, but you can feel it clearly. Something is shifting direction. You no longer feel pushed by circumstances. Instead, you feel guided. You begin to trust that every experience you've lived through, even the ones that hurt, has been quietly leading you to this moment, a place where you're calm enough to see a different path opening in front of you. And as you continue forward, not faster, not slower, just in rhythm with your own breath, you'll notice that this new direction doesn't feel unfamiliar at all. It's shaped by small choices, subtle shifts in thinking, gentler ways of treating yourself. As if life is whispering, nothing has to be torn apart to become better. Sometimes, things only need to be rearranged with kindness. And within that kindness, you begin to understand that what matters most is not the immediate outcome, but the growing sense of peace inside your heart. From that peace, something essential is forming, a steady foundation for what comes next, a place where the light feels clearer, trust runs deeper, and you realize you are ready to receive more of what life has been quietly preparing to give you. And then, within that growing sense of peace, you suddenly realize something important. The most powerful change is not happening in the world around you. Circumstances may look the same. The things that still need to be handled may not have disappeared, but inside you, something is different. Your inner world is no longer tense the way it was before. A softness begins to open, a space where calm slowly returns. Not in a rush, not with noise, but in a way that feels real. The questions that once kept you awake at night are no longer sharp like a blade. They still exist, but they no longer frighten you. You can think about them without your chest tightening. You begin to understand that not every question needs an immediate answer, and not every silence is a sign of failure. Some empty spaces are simply waiting for the right moment to fill themselves. Pisces, there was a time you feared that if things didn't move fast enough, you were falling behind. But today, in this quiet space, you begin to sense a very different truth. Life has not forgotten you. It is guiding you at a rhythm of your own, slower, deeper, yet more stable. A rhythm perfectly matched to your sensitive heart. You may remember periods when you tried so hard, yet the results never came the way you hoped. moments when you questioned whether you were on the wrong path. Now, as you look back, you notice something has changed. You no longer blame yourself the way you once did. You see those chapters as silent lessons, places where you learned patience, where you learned how to love yourself, even when there was nothing to prove. The calm returning to you is not because the future is certain. It's because you are no longer fighting the present. You begin to accept that you are exactly where you need to be, even if this is not the final destination. That acceptance brings a very particular kind of strength. Not the strength to push forward, but the strength to remain steady. You no longer feel the need to strain yourself to keep up with anyone else or to meet invisible expectations. You allow yourself to move slowly, to think deeply, to feel fully. And in that permission, a quiet but lasting trust is formed. A trust that you are being guided, that every small step you take carries meaning, even if you cannot yet see the entire picture. This trust doesn't make noise. It doesn't need proof. It simply exists, like an inner anchor, helping you breathe more evenly through life's changes. You begin to realize that you don't need to know everything in order to keep moving forward. You only need to know this: you are not alone in this current. And as you stand in that feeling, gentle yet steady, you notice yourself becoming ready to open your heart just a little more, ready to believe just a little more, as if a very quiet door is opening from within, leading you toward new experiences, deeper connections, and good things that are already moving toward you, all in their own time, all in a rhythm that only Pisces can truly feel. And in the moment you open your heart like this, you begin to understand why good fortune has never arrived loudly for Pisces. It doesn't interrupt, it doesn't force its way in, it doesn't come to prove anything. It arrives only when your heart is ready to receive, when you stop trying to become the version of yourself you believe others expect. When you stop forcing yourself to be strong all the time, when you stop convincing yourself that logic must always lead the way, you allow your emotions to speak. Honestly, quietly, and with truth. Pisces lives through deep feeling. And yet, there were times when you doubted that very gift, afraid that listening to your heart would only make you more vulnerable. Today you recognize something different. The moment you trust your emotions, you don't become weaker. You become steadier. Not because fear disappears, but because fear no longer decides your direction. Good fortune finds you when you stop bracing yourself to search for it. It may appear as a very small opportunity, just enough to take one more step forward. It may arrive as a person who makes you feel understood without needing long explanations. Or it may simply be a clear inner knowing that what you're feeling is right and that you are allowed to trust your intuition. When emotions are allowed to lead, your choices become softer, but also more honest. You no longer choose out of fear of missing out. You choose because your heart feels calm, and that calm creates a natural pull. What belongs with you begins to move closer without effort. What no longer belongs quietly drifts away, without drama, without loud goodbyes. Pisces, your good fortune is not a reward for how much you've endured. It is the result of returning to your true nature. When you allow yourself to feel deeply, to love sincerely, and to listen slowly, life begins to respond with very subtle gifts. Not always grand, but always fitting. You may start to feel as though everything is falling into its proper place. Not because you've gained control, but because you've released what was never meant to be controlled. Your heart now feels like still water, clearly reflecting what is approaching. And in that clarity, you no longer confuse what you want with what you truly need. Good things find you naturally, as if they were always there, waiting for you to turn toward them. You don't need to change yourself to be worthy. You only need to be yourself, whole, soft, and sincere. And when you walk forward with your heart as your guide, every small step carries meaning. Each one leads you to the right place, at the right time, in the gentlest way life knows how to offer to Pisces. And then you realize that your home carries a different meaning today. It's no longer just a place that shelters you from the weather, no longer just a space you return to after a long day. It becomes a place of healing in a very quiet way. The walls don't speak, but they've held. Your moments long enough to know when you need peace. The familiar corners haven't changed, yet the feeling when you step inside has. A gentleness spreads through the space, as if the room itself is opening its arms to support you. You begin to understand that safety is not about holding everything tightly, not about predicting every risk, or running endless scenarios in your mind. Safety is the feeling of being in a place where you are allowed to let go. It's knowing that even when you're tired, even when you feel uncertain, even when you're not sure where you're headed, there is still a steady foundation beneath you. And when that feeling arrives, you no longer need to strain to prove anything. Within that sense of safety, your heartbeat slows. You stop reacting so quickly to every shift and change. You begin to listen more, not only to others, but to yourself. The emotions you once pushed aside are finally acknowledged. The desires you once hid away are allowed to surface without judgment, without being rushed into labels of right or wrong. From that feeling of being supported, your heart opens naturally. Not wide open to everything, but open just enough for what truly belongs to find its way in. Love no longer feels like a risk of being hurt. It becomes a gentle current, where giving and receiving find their balance. Opportunities begin to appear in the same way, not forced, not overpromising, but clear enough to invite you to take one more step. You start to notice that when you feel safe inside, the world around you reflects that back. Conversations grow more sincere. Choices become clearer. You no longer feel the need to chase or hold on tightly. You simply remain present, open just enough, and what's meant for you finds its way on its own. Your home now feels like an anchor, holding you steady in the current of life. From this place, you step back into the world with a different posture, less guarded, less closed. There's a quiet but deep trust that you are being cared for, not only by what you can see, but by the journey you've already walked. And as you carry that trust with you, each moment ahead begins to reveal new possibilities, like a gentle invitation to keep moving forward with an open heart and a calm, steady gaze. And as the day slowly moves toward the afternoon, the light inside your home changes almost imperceptibly. And you begin to understand that nothing that happened today was meant to disrupt your life. Nothing was broken. No doors were slammed shut. Everything is simply being adjusted as gently as turning a compass needle, so it points in the right direction again. You are still you. Life is still moving forward. But something inside you has quietly returned to where it belongs. That strange change, when you look back on it now, no longer feels confusing. It feels like a gentle reminder that you had drifted away from yourself for too long, and today was the day to come back. Not back to the past, but back to what feels true. A place where you don't have to strain to survive, where you don't have to prove that you deserve good things. You only need to be present, fully present, honestly present. That is how the blessing arrived. Not dramatically, not in a way that demanded your attention right away. It shows itself in the relief you feel when your breath deepens, in the calm that settles in when you stop resisting the flow of this day. It is steady, like the ground beneath your feet. Not loud, not shaky, but always there, supporting every step. From that blessing, the things that once felt completely stuck begin to loosen. The problems that used to trap you no longer force immediate answers. Instead, you find yourself calmer as you face them. You stop asking why everything has been so hard and begin asking how you can continue forward with more gentleness. That question alone opens paths you had never seen before. Pisces, some answers don't come from thinking harder. They come from trusting more. Trusting that every experience you've lived through had a reason. Trusting that your sensitivity is not a weakness, but a finely tuned compass. One that tells you when to pause and when to move ahead. Trusting that life, even with its confusing turns, is still guiding you toward the light in a way that fits your heart. As night slowly settles in, you may feel your inner world quiet down naturally, not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer feel lost. There is a very gentle certainty that you are in the right place at the right time, and from that certainty, you allow yourself to rest, not to escape tomorrow, but to enter it with a lighter spirit, and deeper trust. Today comes to a close like this, not with exclamation points, but with a soft, peaceful pause. And within that pause, you carry a new belief that no matter how life changes, you will always be able to find your balance again. And as you move forward with that belief, good things won't need to knock loudly. They will arrive quietly, at exactly the right moment, just as today arrived, for Pisces, in the gentlest way possible.